We could all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Stan Schmidt,
Present.
Newton White, John Junko, Maria Mills Bennett,
Here.
Bobo Famey,
Here.
Thomas Jordan,
Here.
Lance Green.
Here. All right. Sorry, Bobby, but we cannot move the agenda. So can I get a consideration of the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments, concerns? Call the roll, please.
Stan Schmidt,
Yes.
Maria Mills Bennett,
Yes.
Bobo Famey,
Yes.
Thomas Jordan,
Yes.
Lance Green.
Yes. All right. Application 2023 Water Supply Work Plan. No case number. Penelope.
Good evening, Penelope Cruz, Planning. So the first water supply work plan that the city prepared was in 2009 pursuant to the new legislation that was passed at that time. It's a 10-year plan as required by Florida statutes. And what the statute says is 18 months after the Regional Water Management District adopts their plan, the cities in that district are to update their plans consistent with the regional plan. So that happened in February 2022, but the cities were not notified until about April of last year that the Water Management District had finally updated their plan, and we were given the deadline of August 2023 to prepare our updated 10-year water supply plan. So that is complete. That's what's in your packet. It demonstrates that the city does have sufficient capacity, water supply capacity for the service area for residents, businesses, and future development through that 10-year planning horizon. That 10-year horizon is what's required by Florida statutes. That's what we have to send to them. But as noted in the staff report, the city recently updated the consumptive use permit for the city, and that demonstrated that we have capacity through 2043. So just here to answer any questions you may have about the report.
All right. Again, that was a sleeper of a report. Took me all week to read it in segments. Yes.
Helps
Stan?
No, I don't have any
Stan's got an accounting breakdown. He
I was
Yeah,
waiting
that's
for
right.
that.
We'll get into the gallons per hour and everything else. No, I'm good.
You have anything?
I skipped over the numbers part. I'm good.
No?
Yeah, the 10 years includes all of the potential development that we have available here in the city. Okay, that's about it for me.
Bo?
Penny, if you understand the essence of this report, my respect for you went up just another octave. But I do have some questions. Every 10 years that you verified that, I have a question about this jurisdiction and of the St. John's Water Management District over the cities in that jurisdiction. What is the relationship? I mean, what is their role in determining what needs to be done?
Okay, so there's different state agencies that cover a variety of different things with regards to development and permitting and just in general review of items that go on throughout the state of Florida. And generally, depending on the type of review, an agency is broken down into different districts. So I think the water management districts, I can't recall how many there are, I think 5 or 6, but so it's a pretty large district. They oversee wetland permits. They oversee a variety of different environmental issues. They've been tasked by the state of Florida to oversee this water supply planning process. And so the state of Florida, the legislature has assigned to them, back when the legislation was updated, for each water management district to establish a regional water supply plan and identify regional issues of concern, because obviously water is a regional issue. And then every local government in each of those districts has to submit a plan that is consistent with the regional plan, but also addresses any local issues that are identified.
Okay, and I noticed in the report that we share with New Smyrna Beach and Daytona Beach Shores and Ponce,
We share what? What is it?
water.
We don't share water, but we've got
We sell water.
to the shores. The shores is in our service district. We have we have portions of unincorporated Volusia County in our water district, and Ponce Inlet, not New Smyrna and Daytona. They have their own service area. We do have some backup with Reclaimed, I think, with them. If Juno can probably help out with that. But they're not in. They have Daytona, New Smyrna have their own water service area.
Right.
We have interconnects though.
We do have some interconnects.
Yes, and that's what's referred to in the plan. Good evening, Juno Reed, City Engineer. So what's referred to in the plan is just emergency interconnects with those two other municipalities. Those remain closed in case of emergency, and then both parties have to agree to open those. So we're not sharing water unless there's some sort of emergency or some sort of situation that happens in one of the cities where they need some additional water.
And the reason I ask that is because the projections I noticed for growth through 2043 are in the report, but they don't include those municipalities. And I wondered how
Yeah, correct.
we could
Yeah.
estimate.
We are not responsible for planning for their growth and accommodating that, because like Juno said, it's just for an emergency situation, and both local governments have to agree to that. So we are responsible for planning for our service and planning area.
But nor are we required to provide them with water in the future if need be, right?
Correct. There's provisions in the agreement. Both cities would have to, just for emergencies. We are not required to provide them for water
Service.
just for
Right.
development purposes or
Right.
anything like that. It would just be in an emergency situation.
And I noticed also in the report that the reclaimed water, we actually have, 8,000 people in our municipality that take advantage of the reclaimed. And it also goes on to say that we're gonna go ahead and try and provide more of that. Now, I heard or read somewhere that it takes 4 homes to provide one home with reclaimed water. I don't know if that's true.
I've heard that too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, the best we could ever hope for would be 25% of the people in the city would have reclaimed water.
Potentially, yeah. And then we also have our recharge lakes for emergencies out, for situations where we have dry seasons. But yeah, the whole city is probably not going to be covered with reclaimed, but we're going to try to expand it where it makes sense to expand it.
Well, it's a great thing. I mean, the more people, obviously, the better. A few years ago, we got a award from the state for water quality, and I think we were ranked number 4 or 5 in the state. Are we still in that?
For water quality, for drinking water, I don't know.
We haven't received anything recently.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I took the.
But let me hold up one second.
Yeah.
We made a mistake of, we did not get a motion to open this case when we opened this case, only because there wasn't a case number.
Yeah. I apologize. That's
the-
why I didn't.
Water
Mhm.
supply plan.
So can I get that motion and a second, please?
Make a motion to open City of Port Orange Water Supply Plan.
Second.
Okay. Continue.
So continue.
Yeah, but
We
that's
need to
why
vote.
you don't see a lot of projects that are necessary to meet water supply needs, because the city was really proactive years ago in establishing the reclaim system and the conservation efforts. So where you see some local governments in Florida are having to now, identify projects to address water supply needs. This was something the city thought about early on and planned for, and so that's why you don't really see a lot of, projects that are necessary and that were good through the planning period.
The average person has no idea how complex this whole system is. I mean, I took the tour, when I went through the training a few years ago of the water plant, and I would highly recommend anybody, to take time to do that. You can't really understand or appreciate the size of what they do. So anyway, that's all I have. I'm sorry.
Well, again, on that reclaim, Bo, the alternative is that we're not pumping not one drop into the river. Plain and simple, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a goal about, providing every homeowner with it. It's just, the goal is not to put it into the river, and that's what we're doing.
I understand. Thank you.
All right, I don't have any questions about it. I'm good with it. Did he need to speak to it, or we?
Your hands, any questions you have?
Okay. Any other questions of the staff? Anybody from the public want to speak to it? Come on up, Robert.
Commission members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. For a number of years, for 4 years, there were CIP projects in the agendas that that were with building or digging new wells out in the western part of the county or the city. And the justification for each of those 4 wells was saltwater intrusion here on the eastern side. Now, City Manager Jake Johansson promised he was going to do an audit or a study of some kind. And just recently, I was told by the Assistant City Manager that this consumptive use program would address that study. And I simply do not see enough in there. They very briefly talk about some chloride levels. It says several of the existing water supply wells in the eastern well fields have been shown to have high chloride levels and are currently under restricted use. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more information on the extent to which this saltwater intrusion is continuing and what the levels of the water table is in that area. It just doesn't, to me, satisfy the study that I thought they should have done. And they dug 4 new wells out on the west side, and yet they're talking about digging more wells without addressing those 4 they already built or dug. And then there's a further issue with regard to reclaimed water. So 3 out of 4 do not get reclaimed water. So those 3 out of 4 are digging wells and taking water out of the ground to irrigate their lawns. I know in my neighborhood a whole bunch of people have wells, and they don't even, in this study, they do not address that consumption of water and what the impact of that is on the water table. And then there's the issue of all these mobile home parks that we have, where the mobile home park is privately owned, and the city lets them put in meters, water meters on each unit to monitor the consumption, and they get billed on that.
I want to give him 1 more minute. Can we give him 1 more minute? Go ahead.
Okay, so, but the problem is that the distribution system within the park is privately owned. It belongs to the park. And my concern would be that somebody could tap into that system and just suck up water from the city without any, without any way to know that they're using it, because there is no master meter to monitor that consumption of that park as a totality.
Okay.
So, to me, I think you should send them back to the drawing board and start over. Thank you.
Good points. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
All right, back to the panel here. Any additional comments from the panel here? Anybody? Okay. No other comments? I have a motion and I have a second. Would you call the roll?
Stan Schmidt,
Yes.
Maria Mills Bennett,
Yes.
Bobo Famey,
Yes.
Thomas Jordan,
Yes.
Lance Green.
Yes. All right, thank you. All right, moving right along.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to bring these next 2 up at the same time?
Yes.
If I can flip to them fast enough. I move that we approve, let me get back to it.
Hang on.
2 separate motions, okay. I move that we approve case number VARC-23-0001.
Second.
And the next one?
I'm scrolling to
Move to approve case number SUBD-23-0001.
Second.
All right, so both cases are open. Gwen?
Just for clarification, we can discuss these together, but we have to vote on them separately?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Gwen Perney, planner. So the applicant is requesting the approval of a subdivision of about 2.2 acres along the north side of Herbert Street. The property is currently zoned R2D, which is our two-family dwelling unit or duplex zoning, and then the future land use is 4 to 8 units per acre. The theoretical maximum of this property would be 17 units. And when the developer was first proposing to provide houses on this property, they started out with this configuration, which didn't take into consideration the existing wetlands on the property, saving any of the historic trees on the property. So they came back with the current plan, which is for a 4-lot subdivision, which is 2 duplex buildings. The current design incorporates saving the existing wetlands on the property, all of the historic trees, and a lot of the specimen trees. Because of site constraints and the proposed footprints of the duplexes, a variance is needed to address the wetland buffer requirements. The lots meet the dimensional requirements for the R2D zoning district, and staff reviewed the subdivision for consistency with the code as far as subdivision infrastructure and concurrency. So staff is recommending approval of the overall subdivision. The wetland variance the applicant is requesting relates to the city's required 25-foot wetland buffer, 25 feet from the surveyed wetland line. The St. John's required buffer width is an average of 25 feet with a minimum of 15. The requested variance is for about 16-foot minimum buffer. The city also has a code requirement that's unique to Port Orange that requires 20 feet from the back of a single family or duplex to a wetland buffer line. So it's a total of 45 feet from the back of a house to a wetland, an actual wetland. That distance will still be maintained with the current proposal, but the applicant is reduce the buffer to accommodate the footprint of the home. Also to save this historic tree at the front of the property. There's a 41-inch historic tree at the front and then a specimen tree also next to it. The requested variance is in accordance with the St. John's requirements, which they've already reviewed the plan and approved it. It's just that they have to get city approval also in order to have that reduced buffer. The other options were to ask for variance to reduce the setback from the back of the home to the buffer. The other would have been to try to take out the tree and mitigate, but the applicant is requesting the reduced buffer variance to just maintain the overall 45-foot setback, and then sorry. So staff reviewed all the variance criteria in the code and then found that it would be consistent and is recommending approval of the variance.
Okay, I will admit this is quite confusing.
Okay.
As far as what we're requesting. So if I'm correct, the figure 3 on our packet here is the area that's shaded in yellow.
The area in
Is that, I'm on,
For the wetland buffer.
yeah, the graphic in the staff report. So
we're talking about the yellow area that is behind the house, but between, it's technically in the buffer of the wetland. Is that what we're talking about here?
yeah, they're requesting to move that the edge of the buffer line back towards the wetland.
To 16 feet?
Yeah, I guess it's a 9-foot setback or something like that. But, yeah, so that yellow area would be what they're encroaching into.
Okay, but then everything that's behind that is going to be maintained as wetland?
Right, that's still all part of the buffer and wetland area. That'll be just natural vegetation.
Okay, I think I understand. Stan, I'll start with you on this one.
As far as the variance is concerned, I don't have a real problem with it. And as far as the plot or the actual design of the what do we call them? The final subdivision plat and plans, I didn't really see anything too exciting in that either. So the wetlands, that's just going to stay just exactly the way it is, and that's the whole deal.
Yes.
So you're really trying to get the footprint so that we don't encroach upon that, and yet the owner has some use of this property.
Yes.
In the if you look at one of these maps, either figure 2 on the plat, and same thing, the figure 3 on the variance. In the lower left-hand corner, that's where some of your native oak trees are.
The historic
Yeah,
tree.
the lower left-hand corner is
Lower
the
left corner,
historic.
Okay, and then there's also some in the upper right where it has tree protection areas.
Yeah, all of those are the conservation easements around the historic
Okay.
trees.
Will the driveway for the duplex unit 1, is that going to be a permeable driveway, so it's not going to cut off water to the roots of the trees?
Yeah, they're designing that to be pervious.
That's it.
Maria?
I think I'm good. It took me reading through it a couple of times, and I appreciate Bobby reaching out, but I had figured it out by then. I think I'm okay.
Tom?
Yeah, the lot is significantly, it's a deep lot, isn't it?
Yes.
The overall lot, it's really deep, so that's good. And I was concerned about the oak tree up in the front there too. So what we're really doing is we're essentially switching to what St. John's River Water Management District says, which is they can average the buffer.
Yes, yeah, their rules were adopted after we adopted our code, so they've updated theirs and determined that that's sufficient in order to protect the wetland.
So that wetland, the way it was described, it's a poor quality wetland?
Yeah, it's a wetland that's kind of man-made. It's because that property's remained vacant all these years and the homes developed around it, it just kind of became a wetland area. But from an ecological standpoint, it has invasive plants in it, and it's cut off from any regional wetland area that it would provide any benefit.
Okay, so clarify that. So you say it's man-made?
No, well, no, just because it's just never got developed.
Abandoned made.
So. Abandoned.
So you're saying it's just a low spot? Is that what we're saying here? It just stays wet?
And Bobby can verify that information, but it's just something that's become wet over time just because it's never been developed.
All right, so do we need to worry about us approving an issue where it might create a flood issue? That's my concern.
They're not.
How do I know it's not going to be a problem?
The
next hurricane that comes through and the folks that buy those houses all of a sudden complain that we put them into a
So
flood.
the way that the subdivision's been designed is that it's not going to impact those wetlands at all. They're still going to function the way they have been functioning.
But they're not functioning, they're just sitting there though.
As far as like not just being part of a more larger regional wetland area.
Okay.
So
I'm
I mean,
not
Bobby
sure that's
can
an answer, but-
get into that if you have questions about
Okay.
the how much water holds or whatever. So.
All right, thanks.
We're gonna come back to that one, Tom, in a minute.
Yeah, I
when it's
realize
when
that.
it's my turn. Bo, you got anything for Gwen?
Yeah, I just have a quick question about the disparity between the St. John's Water Management and our code. Why is there such a disparity? Now, I understand they did theirs after we did our code, but
It's just that it's a standard The 25 foot is pretty standard in the old codes, and just if any jurisdictions haven't adopted a new standard to meet St. John's, it just is what it is for now.
Okay, and the oak tree's staying, right? The 41?
Yeah, that one's staying on the property.
Okay, great. The driveways are coming off of Hogan Street,
Mhm.
so, okay. That's all I got.
Yeah, I wanted to go
Tom,
back
go
real
ahead.
quick before you jump in. So, and it looked like, that was the other question I had, was it looked like the driveway on units, shoot, what is it, 1 and 2? I'm missing my numbers here.
A little different.
Are almost 48 feet, 49 feet to the, from Herbert Street to the front of the houses, is that right?
The houses on lots 3 and 4 are set back 60 feet from Herbert. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, is it 60 feet, really?
We had their
Yes.
plan in our packet, but you can't print
67.
it, so.
Okay,
a tiny
and then
hard
what's
to
3 and 4?
It's lots 1 and 2 are the 30 feet, so they were able to meet that just regular R2
Okay,
setback.
all right.
And then the other lots are set back further in order to accommodate that historic tree on the
tree.
property.
Gotcha, all right.
All right, so I'm good with you, because I want to bring Bobby up, I want to ask some questions of Bobby.
Bobby Ball with Zevco and Associates. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to give you some long presentation, but I will be here to answer any questions you have. I do
Not
want to thank
billing by the
staff.
hour.
I do want to thank staff. They did a good job of putting us through the ringer to make sure we get a good product before you, and I think we've done that. So I can help answer any questions you got.
My first question to you is going to be, and again, I like infill projects. I'll be the first. I drove by the property. I mean, it's funny. I drove by the property a couple weeks ago, just going back in there. I don't even know why I was back there, and drove around. And these little infill projects to me, I think, are very important. But on the same token, is we need to be very careful. Does this property? I look at this property almost like a little commercial square, if I will. And are we capturing all the water from these two houses on this property?
Yes.
So is that what I'm looking at, where our contour lines are swales and we literally have some type of detention or retention in, is what I'm looking at?
Yes, we're actually taking all of the roof drainage runoff and the driveway runoff and bringing it directly to the pond through pipes or inlets or really trench drains, and so we're capturing all of it. The standard we used, because it's I wanted to be conservative, and we took the closed basin approach to the design. So we ran two different 100-year events, an 11-inch rain event and a 9-inch rain event, and we're holding the water there, and we're not discharging more water than exists today, discharging that same direction. So we took what would be considered the highest standard we can with regards to stormwater treatment and attenuation. And then I can keep going if you want. Or if
Because drainage in that area, obviously, very, very, very,
Yes.
I guess I would say.
Sensitive.
It's very sensitive, and it being so close to the river and being so
Yes.
close to the little canal and everything. And so, my biggest thing is, like as Tom said, are we gonna flood? Are we gonna flood somewhere?
Right.
I don't want this property to shed water and anywhere else that we could potentially flood something else. But at the same time, if we're capturing it, the wetland that's in the back and everything, it's really not. It's just an old ass
It's
piece
just
of
an old
property.
depression.
Excuse my French.
Old
It's
depression
just been
that's-
there forever, and
Yes.
it's probably some little natural stream or shed that happened over years and years and years.
which has since been cut off. So it's just been developed around.
So it
it's
really doesn't attach to anything. It's
Not
just
really.
a wet area.
just a low wet area. Yep.
Okay, that can collect.
That does collect whatever water falls on it and what might come from the backyards around it into it. And so, that was part of the idea also of not impacting the wetlands, because we could never compensate properly if we were to impact the depression, the actual low area. We could never do it. So we had to develop on the upland piece to stay out of it and to not make things worse.
Do any of the properties that are from behind it shed onto this property?
I would imagine they do.
Do you know, or
Yeah.
I don't know?
I'm sure they do. I drove around it, and yes, I mean, I think some of the backyards and some of the, even maybe some of the streets on the north side might drain that way. But yes, there's certainly a basin around it that's bigger than just the wooded area.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything for Bobby? Stan?
So, just to kind of clarify then, Bobby, on the
Sir.
figure 2 on the subdivision plat, when you have those gradient lines around there, it's awfully hard to read what the depth is, but is
Mhm.
this, so basically the buildings themselves will be on a pad, so they won't flood.
Correct. And so around the perimeter, we're going to have back slopes that come up to the top of the bank,
Right,
and then we come down into the depression.
into the
And
depression.
it's 2 feet deep.
Yes, it's 2 feet deep. Along the houses are up on stem walls, and so all of the roof drainage is being collected by roof drains and rain leaders directly to the ponds.
Okay.
So there's very little sheet flow, if you will, of the areas. All really, it's either top of bank from the pond or houses draining directly to.
And the other gradients around the pond and the buildings, that's gonna be coming in.
Yes, with the exception of I have to get up to that 2 feet.
Right.
That 6 or 8 feet on the outside will be draining off, but that's really, quite frankly, not much different than what happens today. The whole lot drains to the back.
And there was something on lot 2 that's proposed concrete, something or other. Is that to connect into some drainage that's underground drainage that's back there, or what is that?
The discharge structure in the back, maybe? Is that what you're
Yes.
talking about on the back? That's just to match rates and volumes of water. So we're not allowed to discharge more in post-development than pre-development. So that's sized to regulate the water and hold the water back and keep it all in the pond and match what's happening in pre-development. That's
So
standard.
that's the
for-
overflow,
Yes, sir.
and it goes back into the wetland?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it goes into the tree protection area.
It does, but everything.
But it's all kind
the
of
whole
low
site
there
drains
anyway.
backwards
All
to the
right.
wetland, so it goes to the same place.
That's it.
So, and again, just for my own edification,
Sure.
there's no rule that says that this lot can shed to another lot, or,
The way the rule works is you're allowed to discharge in the same direction, in the same manner, at the same rates and or volumes. And depending on the type of basin you're going to, typically it's just rates. If you're in a closed basin, it's rates and volumes.
Right.
In this case, we could argue there might be an outfall. I'm not really interested in that. We wanted to just do the best we could for the whole basin, and so we matched the highest standard.
okay,
But yes, you're allowed to discharge off-site in the same direction that it's going.
right. Maria?
I think I'm good.
Tom?
Bobby, how do you know it's draining in the same direction?
The existing topo from current conditions.
Mhm.
We analyze and take a look at the whole topography of the site.
Okay.
And the road's around elevation, I want to say 7 or 8, and the back's around elevation 6. So everything's going to the
the
north.
back.
Mhm.
All right. And you said there was piping from all 4 units into the retention area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's not just...
All the roof gutters are going to be directly piped to the ponds.
Right, okay. So, who's responsible for maintaining those pipes?
We've got a property owner or a homeowner association.
Really? There is an HOA on these 4 units?
Yeah. As crazy as that sounds, that's what. Yes.
Brendan is the HOA.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Well,
I think that's it.
They test the water, and they have these little paper boats that they put in the water. And they want.
See where it ends up.
I don't have anything, thanks.
okay. All right, Bobby, you got anything else you want to add to this?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody from the public want to come and speak to this? Come on up, sir. Just state your name for the record, please.
Robert Moat. I live at 620 Herbert Street, directly across the street from this property. 1 lot west, being parallel with it. I have a drainage problem. I've lived there for quite some time, and I've got a retention area on my property that fills up. And I had someone from the city come about 25 years ago. There was a culvert that went from my property across Herbert Street to that property for drainage. Well, the city came out and they tried to snake it. They couldn't do it. The culvert was only about this big in diameter. It wasn't like a giant one. And so they left me hanging. Well, at the time I didn't think anything of it because we hadn't had all these crazy hurricanes and rains. Well, 3 times now, I've almost got flooded. The water came up in that retention area, if you were to see the property, to my house built in 1949 on piers, and almost got me 3 times. Because I don't have, the city showed me this master drainage map 25 years ago, where it's supposed to go. It's supposed to go across that the road into a ditch that's there. From where it goes from there, I don't know. But, so I should have done something back then about it, but I just let it go because I hadn't gotten flooded at the time. But since those 3 hurricanes came through, then we had that crazy depression. It came and dumped 12 inches of rain one year, and now this last
Okay.
October,
Mm-hmm.
there's no place for my water to go. Sugar Mill Apartments backs up to me. It's higher than, my property is higher in the back, so there's no way I can get water back there. There's no way I can create a drainage situation. I've got a garage in the back. So I'm just wondering if there's anything the city could look into for me on this,
Okay.
to see if you can find out what's supposed to happen on my property in relation to that property.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Come on up.
My name is Barbara McDonald Noyes, and we own that 7.5 acres behind the property that you're talking about. And my dad, I won't get too personal, but my dad years ago, we were poor people and we had a farm. We had cows, pigs, everything imaginable.
I know the family.
Yeah, okay. And we're so concerned, but my dad always said, if I had money, now, nothing against the city, I'm happy here, I'll never move. I would sue the city for the drainage coming off on me. And I talked to the St. Water Management 2 years ago, and he brought up all the maps and said that is not wetlands that we're on. But I think the city calls that wetlands. That 7.5 acres there that I grew up on. And really, that's all I have to say. Just consider that drainage that I know when they built at 615 and 617 Herbert Street, that was maybe 10 years ago they built the duplexes there. Well, they built that so high that rolled back on our property there, and I just hope that conditions here will work out so we don't get any more drainage. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
God bless all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, so with that being said,
Brendan.
huh? Oh, I'm sorry, come on up. I didn't see your hand was too tan, Brendan.
Good evening, Commission. Brendan Galbraith, 4190 Halifax, a partner in the project of 609. I believe, Bobby's, takes a very conservative approach, and we've worked around all the oak trees. It's certainly a project that I, believe is a great infill project, like you mentioned, Lance. And I'm just here to, kind of identify what I believe is the momentum on that side of town, which I think this project will add to being a quality project, and what we're going to build is going to be a good product for that side of town that's going to kind of ride the wave that we're all in with the Bristol project, and then the activity at the corner of Spruce Creek and Dunlawton, the Olson project. The doctor's building 2 lots on Dunlawton. Currently, they broke ground a while back. I just feel like there's a lot of momentum over there for all these infill projects, and we're hoping to continue to ride that wave with this project as a small piece of that bigger puzzle. So I'm just hopeful that you guys support us and let us keep moving forward, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Okay. You want to start on there? Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to bring Bobby back up. I've got a couple questions
Yeah,
back for
that's
Bobby
what I
now that I just want to dig a little bit deeper. I want to go a little bit further into and Bobby, you know where I'm going with this is, again, I'm about the water, and again, I love these infill projects, but at the same time, we can't shed. We need to be cognizant of this property. This lot sheds to the back naturally, and has as it existed for however many years, correct?
Yes.
By us building these 2 units in the front, we are capturing the water from the back to the front, but from the back backwards, we're not capturing anything because it's really it was always natural, correct?
Correct. There's no development back there, so we don't really have an obligation or a need to collect it.
Okay.
The hard part we could certainly offer it to put a little berm or something in there and hold 6 inches or a foot or something like that, but that goes against the city's code with regards to tree preservation and trying to do things like that. If you said, yeah, we wanted to do that, sure, we could put up a little 1 foot berm and hold more water back, but then that goes directly against your own
Well,
code.
part of that would have to be on part of this wetland buffer that we're trying to protect.
Well, I would probably do it outside the buffer.
Okay.
You
I see.
wouldn't do it in the buffer. I wouldn't propose to impact wetlands to do that, but
I'm just saying, this is an old area, and it's very sensitive. I'll be the first to say it's a sensitive area, and with the railroad tracks and everything else that we have there,
Sure.
is there's not a lot of ways for the water to get out. So,
what we've got
to your
proposed
knowledge, is there a pipe in the front, or is there any city piping that's in this area?
I didn't see
that
it on the
this
survey,
gentleman was out?
and it wasn't brought to our attention during the review process, so I'm not aware of it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and has been closed
Probably
up.
don't have anything on a utility plan down there.
I don't. And back to your last point, if trying to not be impactful to the trees, adding a berm isn't really the right thing to do from that perspective, but it could be done.
Right.
I don't like volunteering things that aren't necessarily, for my client, that aren't necessarily required, and making things harder, because I'm not interested in trying to, drag out staff's time and do things.
But you're 250 feet into the woods too, correct?
Correct. That currently is natural, and we're not touching that at this point.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. Okay. Anything else for Bobby on this one?
Well, I was just kind of curious, because just this gentleman was talking about, the city told him a long time ago there was a pipe underneath Herbert Street, but you weren't aware of that from the documents you saw.
I don't see it in anything that we've been able to research or get a survey on, or staff hasn't told us there was any kind of a historical design or intent there. So I have no way of. I mean, we can ask and see if anybody can produce that same map. That would be helpful.
Because I guess, just the dumb accountant view of this, I would think that the street would probably be kind of a dam between his property and this property, so it would kind of hold water.
It would be up to a certain point.
Right.
It would help actually. As soon as you put a pipe under the road, then you've actually made the connection to the other side of the street at a lower elevation.
Correct.
So there's a two-sided coin to that as far as how it works.
Exactly.
But certainly.
Well, and that was the only question I had, was like, okay, if this pipe exists, and I'm not saying that you're not telling us the deal, if this mystery pipe exists, at some point in time, the idea was to pull the water under Herbert Street. But we don't know if it exists or not now. I mean,
Right.
as far as you're concerned, you don't know.
Yeah, I can only attack what I know is in front of me when we're
Exactly.
doing the design.
But the way this is built, the water's coming off of the road onto the property,
And then continuing north, yes.
Right.
onto this property and into the drainage retention.
Yes.
Correct.
It's
Okay.
just that you got to the crown of the road.
Understood,
It's
but
gonna
there's
hold
still, but the water's going that way.
It's still going that way,
and,
exactly.
and it's going
just,
into
it
that
just
pond.
doesn't have a direct route
Right.
under the road.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, real quick. So, Bobby, I don't want to put you on the spot here because it's not part of your project, but the young lady referred to the duplexes to the west, I assume. So, when they put those in, you look at the square footage of the buildings, and any project you work on. You look at the square foot of the footprint of the buildings and how much you're taking out of permeable land and putting in this impervious
Right.
surface with the roofs, and it drains all onto the sides. So, but we're talking about a significant amount of land here behind where these houses, your house, your project's homes are, and the duplexes next to it also, right? I mean, we've got a huge amount of what appears to be vacant land.
On the east side, are you referring to that
No,
gap there?
north, to the north of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, several hundred feet, and then whatever's behind us that's undeveloped is already wet, so the likelihood of that ever being developed, I'm assuming, is not very high, but I assume they could go
Correct.
through the same process and figure it out.
Right.
But no, you're right, Tom. There's a large amount of land next door, the duplexes next door,
Correct.
and they're 250 feet from the back as well.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just been natural land. It's been there for a long
And we've
time.
got this man-made barrier, which is the railroad, which really creates everything to the west as being it's a bowl.
It's a dam.
Nothing. Yeah, exactly. Nothing can flow east of there.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Bobby.
You're welcome.
All right. Go ahead.
I also just want us to keep in mind that the city is aware of the water retention in that area and has been for some time. And it's something that they are constantly looking at and trying to improve. So just something to consider as we're looking at this project. It's something that's the city already looks at in that area. So that's helpful to know, rather there's a pipe under Herbert or not, which seems odd to me, that they are looking at ways to improve the water retention in those areas.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Bobby.
You know, I know we're trying to balance three things here, really. The residents around this particular lot. The other thing we're trying to balance, though, is preservation of these trees, which in this case, this project does an excellent job of preserving these trees, which are critical to all the other things that we have going on, and do an infill development project, which is, well, I don't know if it's tricky. We just want to make sure that we balance everything here and that we're doing it right.
No, I think you bring up a good point, Tom. I mean, with the houses being towards the front, 250 feet of basically green land is being left alone in the back. You know, it seems like every project we do anymore, we just flatten land. We just flatten land, and we run out any animals that there are or anything. You know, and so to preserve the tree in the front and to preserve the property in the back, I think is critical, just as critical as it is to maintain the water. And with the water being the biggest thing for me, and so with the way the houses are built up and with us having this retention pond to capture the water, I think the design it's a good looking design for an infill project in that area, which again, that area long overdue there's nothing been going on down there in a long time. So
I have a question for Brennan.
One more, Brendan. You don't get away easy, bud. You don't get paid for this.
You're not even on hourly.
Bobby does.
All right, checks.
Go ahead.
Do you take credit cards? Go ahead.
You're passing them out.
So, from what Bobby said, there is going to be an HOA on these.
We tried to get by without one, and we were told we needed one. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
I won't go there.
What was that?
A city code, I believe.
Code requires an HOA for subdivision.
For maintenance of.
As we stated before, this subdivision applies all land development code requirements.
Gotcha. All right.
100%.
So, so the wetland, the buffers, is this fee simple? Is it going to be fee simple? Is it just purchase? They're for purchase?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
They're going to be 4 fee simple lots, and then we'll decide if we hold on to them or if we.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you were to sell them, does the buffers become part of the deed restrictions in any way?
It's all restricted, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all. Easy ones.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Further discussion? Anybody?
Nothing.
And we have two motions on the floor, and we need to start with the first one, which is the variance.
Mm-hmm.
Would you call the roll?
Stan Schmidt,
Yes.
Maria Mills Bennett,
Yes.
Bobo Famey,
Yes.
Thomas Jordan,
Yes.
Lance Green,
Yes. All right, next case. Call the roll, please.
Stan Schmidt,
Yes.
Maria Mills Bennett,
Yes.
Bobo Famey,
Yes.
Thomas Jordan,
Yes.
Lance Green.
Yes. 5-0. All right, thank you guys on that one. All right. Commissioner comments. I'll start with you, Bo.
Well, I had a comment, but I forgot what it was. So,
Man, I can't wait to get
I
old.
guess the answer is no. Yeah, I'll save it.
Tom?
Yeah, he'll remember it then, yeah. No, sir, I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Maria?
I'm good.
Stan?
I'm good. I think we kind of.
I just want to make just a couple comments. Tim, so I'm pretty sure that we are going to be seeing possibly next month the first draft of the Bristol projects? Is that what I saw, read?
Correct. It will just be the master development agreement and the conceptual development plan.
That's coming to be in front of us next month?
Yeah, basically do some scheduling items there. Basically, without basically, the way it kind of shook out there, it was better for us to bring it in July and then city council in August.
Okay.
So that's where we're going to go.
Nice.
So we'll see the MDA and just a conceptual plan.
Yeah, master development agreement and conceptual plan, which is pretty much similar to what I think everyone kind of seen as you've watched things on the CRA meeting and the council discuss various items. It's kind of that same kind of concept that's been coming for you, except just in your master development agreement document then.
Gotcha.
Okay, so now them guys left, I want to ask you about, so it's 4 units on the property and it's going to have an HOA.
Correct.
What happens if the HOA goes defunct?
They are required to basically maintain an HOA. If
Because
you-
I've been reading some things where a lot of these HOAs are going out of business and or not fulfilling, I assume, what they're supposed to do. We've got a couple of them here in Port Orange
A
now.
lot older subdivisions have that
Yeah,
requirement then.
and so what happens?
I think Shannon probably can speak more to that on the legal side, but I mean, I think basically, we've had them dissolve. The ones that have dissolved have been older ones. The ones that have been approved over the past 20 years, those have maintained, because I think there's more of a pressure onto those improvements then.
Right.
And this HOA too, the maintenance really is just that pond area then, so I think it's very important, especially with those 4 lots. You're looking directly at it then. It's not a significant amount of infrastructure that they have to maintain. But we do require it on any subdivision to
But
basically.
does that HOA own the property in the back?
No, it's all individual lots
It's all
then.
literally, there's 4 lines
Individual
going down
4
that
lots
whole
there
thing?
then, and then basically you have to have common maintenance with easements there to maintain the pond then as needed.
Right. And that would be my concern, because it's only 4 units. And, it doesn't take a whole lot for it to go broke. Is he required to start the HOA and or have an initial funding of it?
Yeah, we basically, prior to it getting recorded, we look at the HOA documents, so it's all established then, and then of course, once they sell the properties, it kind of, goes along that way then.
Well, it's kind of like any other project, like Woodhaven, where there's an HOA, the developer starts.
Has to start it, but he has to start it with
Pass it
funds.
along.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You'd be
You know what
required
I'm
to,
saying?
yeah, just.
I know what you're saying.
But
That
it-
does the life cycle of
Yeah.
what it's maintaining.
Right.
Yeah, just like Jordan
Yeah.
said, it's kind of like Woodhaven, except 150 lots, it's 4, it's a lot quicker to get to turn that HOA over to the.
Yeah.
Well, if you sell it.
Yeah.
If you sell the lots.
I don't know, they might keep them and rent them all out then, so that would be, another option. In terms of subdivision, we don't look at that. It could be a rental community versus ownership community. All we look at is 4 lots, meeting code.
And I'm just curious, do we have any other projects that are coming in where we have these shopping centers and people are wanting to put out parcels on them, such as what we're doing in Dunlawton Square? Do we have other projects that are coming like that want to put, is there anything happening at the pavilion? And that's why I asked.
We have one item in the pavilion. I think basically it's got a sign on there. You'll be seeing that for an MDA agreement. It's the lot next to US Foods and Firestone. That's a vacant out parcel lot already established to be a car lot, or not car wash then. You'll be seeing that MDA amendment soon. That's more of an out parcel that was already established lot of record then, but I'm not aware of any looking at basically taking a unused portion of a parking lot and basically doing infill projects there. That's something that we've been able to do quite a few areas here, and it stops you from basically going out and doing something greenfield and put it in there and kind of puts new uses back in the old part of town then.
Right.
In
And
the
I just-
pavilion though, isn't there already spots
There's
like
quite a bit of
that?
spots in the
Yeah,
pavilion.
there is. There's
We-
outparts in the pavilion
Yeah.
that's never been built.
We would welcome that in the pavilion.
And now we have a whole Chuck E. Cheese lot.
Yes, we do.
They're not coming back?
We've had a meeting with them a while ago, but haven't had any more
They are
comments
coming
there.
back?
Trust me, my daughter asks me that every night too.
They are.
That, and she's very upset over the Golden Corral being demolished. She blames me for that.
Man, me too.
But I mean, there's
Yeah,
another one
gross.
that's an out parcel in a shopping center. And again, I think I like it because we're not taking up any other space and we're utilizing the same traffic and the same parking lots and those things,
And we're improving the appearance of that shopping
Yeah,
center by adding a new building in
absolutely.
there then.
Which lets me ask a question here. Were they forced to do all that landscaping? Did city code enforcement go through there, or was that just they decided to actually spend the money?
Where?
Where?
At the pavilion.
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, they were they were required to put that landscaping in by code, and then
Yeah.
to maintain it, they
Yeah.
are required. I know code enforcement's been out there quite a bit then, making them maintain that landscaping. I haven't been out there
If
a while.
somebody complains, I mean, they're reactive. They're not.
I think they're going more into those areas and stuff like that then, on the pavilion side then, and basically being proactive on that side. But
Do they look at the signage also for how to get on the 95?
I mean, that basically would be, I mean, that's more of a, I mean, what's wrong with that in terms of, I mean, they put signage in their direction there.
They faded so much you can barely read them.
I mean, that would be, I mean, something we can, look in to see if they can replace those. I think those are more assistant for wayfinding then. So we have to see if we got codes on there then.
Right.
I mean, I find it disappointing what's happening with that, especially with the amount of residential units and apartments that are going up out there in that area, and that thing still is in decline, and still it's getting worse by the day, unfortunately, and it's not being upkept. I mean, it's the lights don't work. They're
getting the sales tax dollars.
I'm really
on that.
surprised,
Yeah.
and I just see somebody else is leaving. Cooley Yoga's leaving. So
Oh, really?
yeah, they're going somewhere. They're going to Ridgewood, so which is good for Ridgewood. So
Well, I think Tanger and
just got-
LPGA had
What?
more to do with what's going on
yeah,
there.
I get it, but
Just
Yeah.
got some new places in the pavilion, but it definitely needs to be better kept up.
Yeah.
It's always a wreck.
Speaking of that, the hotel land is being cleared?
Yes, for the Holiday Inn at the corner over by 7-Eleven. That is cleared a while ago then.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of delay in construction then, but kind of what you see out there in terms of the tree buffer remaining around the perimeter, that is the tree buffer that, is to remain once the hotel is built then. So you really can't see it's being worked on until you come on the backside around the pavilion. You can see back there then. That buffer from the roadway is pretty
Right.
substantial then.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we're doing a good job with it. All right, that's all I have. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Tim.
Tim. Staff comments? You got anything? You got 2 more minutes. You have the speed.
Nope.
Are we also gonna have,
I think my time's up.
next month, we also have the land development code that's coming to us, or what is it, next month?
The comp plan, basically
Yeah.
we're still working through that then. That will basically be, something we're, try to, but I don't know if that's gonna be on the agenda. We still got a lot to do on that then.
Okay, so it might just be Bristol and that's it. 'Cause
Or if
when-
there's, or if anything else pops up that we gotta, bring to the planning commission.
Yeah,
then.
but I mean, earlier I had heard rumors that would be the 2 issues together, and I thought, well, that could be a nightmare meeting too.
I mean, we'll basically see in terms of, if we can get both of them on that night then, it might be a night to bring your, dinner then. But,
Dinner.
on that one there, we'll,
Stan?
to move forward then, but,
Bacon.
we'll keep you updated as to what that meeting will be, but basically definitely the Bristol item then. And then, moving forward, then the comp plan may July or, into August then.
So what is going at Dunlawton and Lafayette? And then what is going at Dunlawton and right in front of the little shopping center there? What is it?
Oh, there's 2. There's one's a small retail shop, basically I think 3-tenant retail space. That's the one that's closest to Ridgewood and Dunlawton then.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one on Lafayette and Dunlawton is a professional office multi-tenant building then. So 2 little small infill properties that.
I mean, amazing. It's just, it shows like, like they were saying, there is a momentum on that side, and I like it. I'm hoping it's still going.
I think it's still
does it seem
going.
like it to you?
Yeah. And we got Olson Homes building down the road then. We've got the Down Under plan coming to council here on that side then. And hopefully, we get some more stuff going in the Down Under
What
then
was
too.
that?
The Down Under on the other side of the bridge. We've got kind of a master plan for that. That will be going to or CRA here
Millie's
shortly.
backed out on that though, didn't they?
What's that?
Didn't Millie's back out on that?
The overall area is what the
Oh,
plan
gotcha,
would be for,
gotcha.
not specific development.
Oh,
Got it,
okay.
Trying to improve the overall parking in that area and stuff like that then, and making that more of an area destination then, what we can do to try to attract and keep businesses down there is what that plan is. And
Nice.
so
What can you
there's
do?
a lot, what's that?
What can you do?
Parking.
Parking is huge.
Parking's horrible down there in terms
I
of
get it, but
basically
there's only so much space.
underground underground the drainage, basically add more parking in that area, make it actually more so you can flow. Right now when you go there, sometimes you get people who park in the
Yeah.
actual access drive aisle.
Yeah.
And there, you're looking at that. I think we looked at the plan, and getting 75, 80 spaces there in addition to what's there now could just help those businesses grow. Plus, too, making the appearance of it a little bit better, setting it up for more special events down there.
If
Or
you just
things.
painted stripes so people that don't know how to park could actually park, that would add some.
I don't know if that would help them.
But that's-
Sometimes they still park
You almost
over
gotta-
the stripes.
You almost
And,
gonna need a curb to tell them this is a road, you can't
Yeah.
park.
But that's state space that we're in joint with, right?
yeah,
Right.
we basically have a lease with them. We're actually getting ready to renew that here shortly then. But that's, something, there's a lot of momentum down there then.
You know, if you had we talked about this once before, but if there was some kind of a ferry boat and that would go across the river, and you people could park on the west side, and access the restaurants that way, that would give more access. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually part of the plan.
Huh?
You should set that up.
You want me to do it?
That's actually part of the plan on that too then. And I know we're working with trying to get fine grants too to help put the dock systems in there. So there's a lot kind of in terms of planning and looking for grants that is going on right now.
Tom's a captain, I think.
We might need a boat captain, so we'll.
That's going to interfere with my floating boat dock bar that's going to be out in the causeway.
The
that-
wait times for
in the
deck down
future.
under are long enough. Can we stop this?
Yeah, our plan can't address that.
On a side note, I noticed the submerged lot has a big for sale sign up on it again, east of
Seabird.
Seabird, thank you.
Oh yeah, the marina.
Yeah, I think that's typically has a for sale sign on for about the past 10 years then. It just kind of blows away and then they put it back up.
Okay.
So, I can't help but notice the issue with the boats that are now being abandoned right out on our causeway and
Gosh, so many.
both sides of the river. And I saw the thing about the islands being habitat and 3-story condo units on the islands. But is there any type of, I know one of the council members I've talked about some kind of regulations for mooring and that the city can impose and for these boats out there? Or?
Haven't been really involved in it. She has more been PD.
Okay.
Working on that side then, so not really
I'll
up to
pick you up
speed.
Saturday morning in my boat and we'll go for a ride. We'll go fishing and we'll go look at it.
All right.
But it's getting really, really bad and it's right
It is
there.
really bad.
And what's happening is that they're now inundating the bathroom facility that's under the bridge. You know what I mean? They can get the land, but yet they're living right there, and it's not
I wonder how
it's
they
not
deal with
getting
that
better.
St. Augustine. St. Augustine has a
Well, they
ton.
do. They have where you have to have a permit to park, and you can't park for over a month, and then they come out and check in. If you're not, they tow you. But it's getting worse. I mean, New Smyrna's overrun, but Port Orange, it's happening to us now, and you got one right over there by our deck down under, out in front of the Admiralty Club. It's completely turned over now. Environmentally, it stinks for the river, but look at you're saying this is our destination point. We're looking at the bottom of a boat. We got to do something. We got to
That's
be
the
able to
second
do
boat
something.
there. There was another boat that got removed. That's
But
the
over
second
time,
one.
we got to figure out what we can do. I mean, it's dilapidating. It looks bad. You know what I mean? So, anyway, all right. Thanks, Tim.
Good.
Public comments, Robert. You got anything else? You're it, buddy.
Commissioners, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive. With regard to the talk about the HOAs collapsing, I had some friends who lived in one of the condominiums, and they have HOAs in the condominiums. And if they don't put together a board of directors, they get taken over by the state, and the state will appoint directors. And is that something that we could do with these HOAs here?
Well, I don't know the legalities of it because, again, like you're saying, see, when you're in those condos, and you're having these assessments that are, and certain things are covered, what I mean? So like this one, I'm looking at, okay, it's not very much money, probably per year to be in this HOA. Is it going to be of value to be able to maintain what needs to be done and, and through to the future? But yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that may be state driven too.
Yeah.
I just know in my neighborhood, we make sure that we are fully funded and we have to run our budget every single year for what we have to repair because we have things that might be a 100-year life cycle versus something that might be a 20-year life cycle for our buildings and whatever. And we have to make sure that our assessment's equal to that being 100% funded. So that's a good point. I don't know, but I was just following a couple of the neighborhoods that are bankrupt and I don't know what happens. I mean, I don't know if the state takes over. It's a good question.
How do you go bankrupt? That's a bigger question.
Can't pay your bills. I mean,
know,
some of them.
if everybody
Well, it's
is
either that or you
paying
start
into
getting
HOA.
into special assessments when you get into things that are well beyond what's pre-budgeted.
Right.
So, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I screwed.